Kia ora and welcome to a new video from NZ Pocket Guide. Today I'm going to be talking about the absolute best time to visit New Zealand. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so to begin with, I would like to address the peak season in New Zealand. Quite often, when talking about traveling in New Zealand, we will be talking about avoiding the peak season when coming to the country because the country can get quite busy. We are only a 4 million strong people country, so if we are welcoming millions of tourists at the same time, then the country gets really crowded and the facilities are being stretched to their limit. So the peak season in New Zealand runs from December to February, sometimes running all the way to March. And this is because it is summer in New Zealand. And we have a lot of tourists coming into the country, as well as all the locals enjoying summer in New Zealand. So if you're able to avoid those times when traveling in New Zealand, that would be perfect. Now, the shoulder season are always a mention that we're talking about here at NZ Pocket Guide. We do like to advise you to travel in the shoulder season because they offer a good mix of great weather, or at least better than usual weather, and also less tourists. Also, sometimes the prices are reflecting on that. The shoulder season in New Zealand are March to June and September to November, and those are spring and autumn. So, not unlike the South Pacific nations, New Zealand does not have a rainy season. That's a question that we get really often. New Zealand is a very green and luxuriant country, so it rains pretty much all year round. You can't really predict the weather in New Zealand, not for a week, not for a month, and not even for a day, as we have a saying here in the country stating that there is 4 seasons in one day. So no, New Zealand does not have a rainy season, however, it kind of rains a little bit all the time. Alright, so now let's get down to the absolute favorite time to travel in New Zealand. So my personal favorite time to travel in New Zealand is from March to June. It's autumn in New Zealand, and this is really when the season is slowly cooling down from the summer. Usually we still have some really good clement weather. Again, it changes quite often. And the prices start going down as well when it comes down to doing touristic activities in the country. So for me, it's a great mix that I do appreciate. When it comes down to Laura, which is the editor-in-chief of NZ Pocket Guide, her favorite time to travel to New Zealand is September to November, in spring. This is when New Zealand is coming back into full swing, preparing itself for the touristic season. Again, it is one of the shoulder seasons, so the weather is usually a little bit more clement and the prices are a little bit lower. Plus, a lot of the attractions and activities are starting to reopen, as a lot of attraction and activity providers are actually closing in winter due to the lack of tourists. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that no matter what season you come in to travel to New Zealand, it's never going to be too busy. Again, we are a pretty small country, far away from any other places. So don't be too stressed about picking the best time to travel in New Zealand and just pick a time that is convenient for you. However, if you can make use of our tips, it will just make your trip that little bit better. And on top of that, it will definitely help you on prices, as prices in New Zealand fluctuate heavily between the busy season and the slow season. So you'll be able to save a lot of money by traveling in one over the other. Alright, so that's everything for me. There is much more on nzpocketguide.com, so make sure to check it out. And the whole team is joining me in wishing you the best time ever in New Zealand.